Dear Mr. or Mrs. Listener, we accept the fact that you're going to sacrifice a whole hour to listen to this podcast, but we think you are crazy. In the simplest terms, you see us as you want to see us. A Ninja Turtle, a Jedi, a redhead, a mic. Sincerely yours, Redhead Family Therapy Guy, and a mic.
Don't you forget about the bugger. There's a walk on by. You better listen this thing. It's gonna be great. All right, you found us again, the Redhead Family Therapy Guy
And a mic.
podcast. Dude, we're talking about a good one today. This is up there in my movie favorites.
That's cool.
Because it has kung fu, which is amazing. It's animated. It has Jack Black, who I freaking love, and I think he's just incredibly talented, and his delivery, and just the opening, which I'm gonna get it wrong, where he's all like the story of awesomeness or whatever.
Yes. Yeah, Jack Black is a lot of fun. I feel like he's a good fun. Like all around, what do you call that? Like all around actor. He kind of hits on, he can sing, he can act, and he can do comedy, and then he can do the physical part also. Even though this is animated, he still can do physical part.
He can still do it. You still feel it, like even in his voice, you feel like it's totally him. So I love that. I love the color and the animation.
The animation's really good on this. I love
so good.
Too.
The color and the settings and the scenes, and like I noticed the color changes at different times with the different tones of the movie, and the pacing of the movie is so good.
Yeah,
like the scene
it keeps you entertained, right?
It really does. Like it's like you'll have like this moment, and then you'll have this energetic moment of like Tai Lung like breaking out of prison or whatever.
Yeah.
Like in so many of the sequences, I just thought were just so great, and so it's just a dang good movie.
Did we mention Kung Fu Panda?
Oh, dude.
So I couldn't remember. It's Kung Fu Panda, people.
That's right.
So I want to ask you, since we're talking about Jack Black, I thought this was a fun question. What do you feel like? I can think of a couple of movies that are my favorite Jack Black. I mean, I can think of a lot of Jack Black movies, but for you, what would be, let's say, your top 3 Jack Black movies?
Oh my gosh, well, for sure, Nacho Libre.
Okay,
done. Done. That's by far.
That's your number one. What do you like?
That's one of my favorite movies. The thing that I love about Nacho Libre is that every time I watch it, I laugh more. Every single time I watch it,
it grows on you. It's that type of movie. It just grows,
and I remember just dying the first time I watched it. It's so wonderfully ridiculous and fantastic.
So Nacho Libre. What's number 2?
It's so quotable. It's so quotable too. That's tough. I mean, what jumps in my mind, which is a really small part for him actually, is Cable Guy, because I really liked Cable Guy so much. And he plays, a really straight
the dark
character.
Comedy.
Yes, yeah, it's so dark. But I guess
and so Cable Guy's ahead of Kung Fu Panda?
No way. No. I would say Kung Fu Panda is my second. I would say Kung Fu Panda is my second.
Then Nacho Libre, Kung Fu Panda, and then
I want to say, is it High Fidelity, the one where it's the record store? No, that's not High Fidelity.
Fidelity is a
what's the one with
store? Empire Records?
No, that's not. He's not in Empire Records.
Yeah, I didn't think he was.
It's whatever one where he's like, or is it a video store? It's like a video store or music store. It's been a while since I've seen it, but I remember laughing hysterically at that movie.
And he works in the video store.
I think maybe it's a video store. He works in a video store, and he is an aspiring musician or something like that.
I don't know, but I'll list my 3. Okay, so number 1 is tough for me. I think I feel like number 1 would be School of Rock. That's probably my favorite Jack Black by far. And then number 2, I think, would be Saving Silverman. which was one of his earlier movies. I don't know
I
if
have
people
to.
remember that, but it has a.
I
Is
vaguely
it
do.
Steve Zahn? I think that's his name is in it also, and those two together. Oh man, I love Saving. Just some of the things Jack Black does in that. I love. There's a part where there's nachos and he grabs a nacho and they're like all clustered together, and he's like, if they're stuck together, it's just one nacho because they're sharing a plate of nachos. And then there's another part where
That's
he's doing
exactly
this.
how I approach eating
He's doing
nachos.
this mime thing where he's like, I'm a mime. But I mean, there's a lot more context to that. And then I think Kung Fu Panda. Those would be my top 3 Jack Black movies.
Yeah.
And I School of Rock's the one I know where he's like aspiring music person, but I don't think he works in a movie store.
No, that's not that movie.
Yeah.
No, that I'll have to. Maybe I'll look it up if you
Yeah,
get
it
going on a
sounds so
monologue.
familiar. I'm betting I'm missing some Jack Black movies that are up there. I just can't think of
tons.
them. For me, this may be unpopular opinion. I have watched Nacho Libre so many times, and it's just not. I just struggle with it. Where compared to
Oh my,
that's blasphemous.
do you like his first movie then, the Napoleon Dynamite? Do you not like that either then?
So Napoleon Dynamite,
It's
I
the same
thought
director,
was
right?
good. Yeah. And then the more I watch it, the more I like it. And that's what people
Mhm.
tell me about Nacho Libre. So I've tried that with Nacho Libre, but it hasn't done it like Napoleon. So Napoleon Dynamite, I like more the more I've seen it. I think I started off about the same with Napoleon Dynamite and Nacho Libre as far as,
So
okay, these are
the
fine, but
story Jack Black tells of he watched Napoleon Dynamite and he said, whatever that director is doing next, I want to be in it.
oh,
And so
that's
he reached out
cool.
to him. He reached out to him and he was in Nacho Libre. So
That's cool.
yeah.
I feel like Jack Black does a great job. You feel it's so interesting to me because Jack Black is athletic and he's a bigger guy. I mean,
Yeah.
he's not a big guy. He's not tall like I am, but he's a
Right.
bigger guy.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
so I feel like he manifests this panda-esque
He totally does.
ability in this movie where I mean, I don't think Jack Black is that heavy. I mean, he on camera, I guess he looks a little heavier, but he's got to be in decent shape to do what he does. But in this movie, it's this it's this panda, right? That just is able to be so agile. Um, and so I feel like
Well,
you couldn't get a better actor, I feel like, than Jack Black.
And the cast is
Oh yeah, there's
equally
a
as
ton of
depth. I
people in
mean,
it.
like Dustin Hoffman is great as
Mhm.
I'm forgetting the Red
The
Pandas
yeah,
the trainer
I can't remember what
master.
his name
It's
is.
not Master Oogway. Oogway is the turtle. So Oogway is like, and that's all right. So one of the other things that, of course, I'm going to love this movie is because I
Mhm.
always love movies that have wise, sage,
Sure.
you know, oh man, my brain is foggy today.
Like a wise
Mentors.
sage or a wise mentor.
Yeah.
And Uguay is really
So
a
good.
fun character. And I wanted, as I was watching this, I was like, I should ask John, what do you like? It's interesting they chose a turtle or tortoise. I don't know what he was, but they chose this kind of, you think about a turtle, right? They're deliberate and methodical in their movement. And I feel like
Mhm.
that's what he manifests
Is.
was this kind of wisdom with deliberate and methodical thought process. But I
Yes.
was wondering
Yes.
what your take
Well,
was.
Well, Uguay is so wonderful as a mentor and senior master because he's so incredibly wise, but
Yeah.
then he breaks from that wisdom and is always like, I don't know, or
Uh,
or like like he says it's so well balanced, right? It's not
yeah.
pretentious at all because it's so
Uh-huh.
authentic, but then like every single thing he says is just majesty and just pure truth. You know what I mean? Which is what I love about this movie is just oozing with good knowledge and information and symbology, and like they got it right, and there is this serious intense tone, and then there's also just wonderful humor that like you laugh about. I mean, the fact that Poe can be so shamed by the five
Yeah.
and Poe be so gracious and still appropriately kind of not worshipful, but like such a fan of the five, even though they bust up on him, like, because in one respect, like, it's true, like, I mean, they're shaming him, which is like, not which is kind of, as I watch, it's like, oh, that's kind of disappointing, but it's also like relative to the arc of all the characters and what's going on, and that they have devoted their lives, and they've got this bumbling like Panda, like, being, named as the dragon warrior or whatever. And it's like, that doesn't,
a cool thing to me is when I think of martial arts, in my perspective of martial arts, first, I feel like comes humility and patience. And then comes the physical ability. And I feel like Poe from the beginning has at least the humility part, right?
Well, and he retains that through all of the subsequent movies.
And so I feel like even though they're frustrated, right? The five, and their maybe pride's a little hurt. They're a little skeptical, but even though all of those things are going on, I feel like Poe was already ahead of them from where his standpoint, right, where he came from, which
his attitude,
which enabled him, not to jump to the end, but I feel like that's what enabled him to fulfill this dragon warrior, because I don't think, well, and you saw, right, what's the bad guy's name, the Tylon. He couldn't, when he had the scroll, he was like, what the heck, it's empty.
Yeah. And even he's like, then he's so gracious. Even that moment, he's like, he's like, I didn't get it either. He's like, he's just this kooky, like, crazy turtle. But he's like, but no, he's like, there's no secret ingredient. Like, it's just you. It's you believing in you. It's you seeing what's good for you, which is really the deep resented seed that's in Tai Lung's heart, right? Is this sense of like approval and preeminence, and being better than everyone else, and
really in all of their hearts. That's what blunted, or that's the wall, that shame that got in the way of any of them. Because even the little, is he a red panda, or is he a
red
like
I think it's a red panda.
Is he like even the one that becomes the master or whatever after the turtle dies. I'm sorry, I don't know any names.
Dustin
Dustin Hoffman character.
Yeah,
even he couldn't see it.
Yeah,
because he had that
his
shame,
own pride.
And I think that that's characteristic of all of them, and I think that's the beautiful thing, is that we all are dragon warriors. It's just up to us to see it. It's not up to anyone else besides ourselves. And what does that take? Humility, and the ability, kindness, love, which is things we talk. I feel like those are things we talk about often, which I thought was such a cool thing when I was watching this. I was like, oh, like there's some themes here that I feel like we bring up almost every time, as far as how we view ourselves versus who we really are. And I feel like that was the one power that Poe had that the others struggled, was his ability to have that humility, to see himself as he truly is and not as others see him.
Well, I think it's because, it seems to me that one of the reasons why that is because he's so in love with Kung Fu that he's willing, to even go through that, because he just loves it so much, and it's so in his heart and in his veins, and it is who he is. I mean, surely it would manifest itself because he loves it. Like, it was interesting. It's like, oh, you had the noodle dream, and it's like, he was actually dreaming about Kung Fu, right? Like, that's what's in his heart. You know what I mean? Like
deeper than that, deeper than his love of Kung Fu, like the noodle dream, I think is a really good example, where his dad, I have to take a sidestep for a second.
So great.
The funniest part in the movie to me is when Poe is talking to his dad, and he's like, what does he say? He says something like, something questioning, like, are you really my father, or what, something about him being his dad. And obviously Not his biological father.
Right.
He's not the same animal. But I love that. But to go to your point, I think that dream sequence is really interesting. Because to me,
which by the way, you've got to pause, and just the artwork of the opening scene, the delivery of lines, like the structured, like all of it was just such,
and it has the Asian,
it just pulled me in. Like it just made me like so excited. I just wanted like my Pepsi and my popcorn, and I just wanted to sit there, or my Dr. Pepper and my popcorn, and just like I was
gonna
ready.
say it was probably Dr. Pepper.
Yeah, Dr. Pepper's and like, what am I thinking? Oh, speaking of which, if I could digress again, like, all right, no, finish your point, and then we'll come back to funny scenes.
Okay. So I love, so you bring up the dream, and I feel like maybe deeper than it being his love for Kung Fu, his response to his father is once again really this concern and desire to connect with his father, to where he doesn't correct his father, right? He wants that acceptance from his father. He wants that love. And because of that, he struggles to say the truth. And I think that's really interesting, that for me, deeper, I think Kung Fu is the medium in which his trueness comes out. Right. But I think deeper than that,
I think a part of our character,
go ahead.
Yeah, I think part of our character finding a vehicle is an aspect of the joy and meaning of this life, right? So it could be Kung Fu, it could be cars. I mean, some of my favorite people to meet and get to know are people that are like weirdly obsessed with something, that you go down a rabbit hole and they just love the thing because of the thing, whether it's like a car guy, like our first interviewee,
Kevin.
Kevin, or when people are just into something and they know everything about it and they're just curious, and like, I just think that's fascinating and wonderful. You know what I mean? And to me, that's part of emblematic. I think it's true that there's something underneath that more, like you're saying, but I just also think that there's such value to having a thing, you know what I mean?
Well, I
think
your
personality finding expression and the joy of life being found in the thing,
I think remembering that thing is the vessel. It's not you, right? It's the way in which to find it. And that's what I love about this, is when all is said and done, it's not about the Kung Fu. It's about him seeing himself as he truly is. And we see that from that dream sequence, where his struggle is to see himself and appreciate himself for who he truly is, regardless of the vessel, right? Sometimes the vessel, or I'm using vessel, but the thing that we like or that we desire, the thing that brings maybe out our personality, like you're saying, sometimes that can itself be something that creates or adds to us struggling to see ourselves as we truly are. And that's what I thought was interesting about that dream sequence, is that it's not so much for me about the Kung Fu or about the noodles, but more so about he has love for his father. He desires to be accepted by his father. And he struggles, I think, to be himself and feel like that's lovable and acceptable enough. And so he pretends, right? Or he submits. And it's not until he stops pretending and submitting and sees himself for who he truly is that he becomes the Dragon Warrior. But yeah, I kind of went off on
which is a panda who loves Kung Fu.
Yes. and food. But what panda do you ever see that's not eating, right? Every time I see the panda, they're chewing on bamboo or something.
It's so great. Well, it's true too, because the thing that this movie did so well is capturing the persona or personality type in animals, right? Because pandas rolling around and bumbling around and being lovable. I don't know if you've seen, there's like a YouTube channel of like these pandas in a Chinese zoo of some kind.
I have not.
Of some kind, and they are adorable.
We have some in the Memphis Zoo.
Yeah, this person's like trying to clean up the yard and they're coming over and getting in the way, and like she's moving them and like rolling them away. And it's just, there's all these videos. I found some channel that's like panda video, like like real life panda videos. But so
you're going to bring something up a moment
ago. I was going to ask you about funny scenes. Like this is a fantastically humorous movie, and there's so many just wonderfully timed
Yeah.
jokes.
So
what was one of your favorite, or a couple of your
I
favorite?
definitely love the scene. I just can't remember exactly what was said when he is talking to his dad, and he kind of says something as if he has no idea that his dad's not
His dad,
actually his biological father.
right?
And I
Right.
loved that. Like, that was just
Yeah. Like
so
he's like that
childlike, so kind.
naive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which I just loved. And then I love the part where the Dustin Hoffman character finds out, like, sees him doing all this kung fu, right? Sees Poe, and
in the
and he
kitchen when he's
tells
like
him,
hungry.
he tells him there's some cookies, or he kind of nonchalantly mentions, oh yeah, I think someone, the one, I can't remember, the cricket
Monkey
or
Heinz's
monkey,
cookies up
yeah.
top or whatever.
And he jumps up there and he's doing the splits, right? And then he walks
like,
back in.
You're like 20 feet off the ground.
But his humor is so humble throughout, which just really grabs at you, and has you fall in love. Yeah, with
because there's no pretense. There's just no pretense. He's without guile, right?
Which I feel like is I feel like Jack Black is good at that. Like, I feel like in School of Rock, you just love this guy who is doing something facetious, right? Where he's get away with, like, not teaching these kids, but you just kind of grow to love him because Jack Black kind of has that personality. But not to talk about another movie. Yeah. But I love that about Poe in this movie, is this lovable humility, childlikeness that just draws you in.
He even has it for Tai Lung, right? Like, he's even being playful, even though it's like Tai Lung could kill him, and that was his fear. He's like, that was the one thing that was going to chase him off from pursuing training.
Well, that's
he's even still playful with him.
Well, that's what I love.
He's like, wait. He's like, hey, he's a panda. You're a panda. And he's like, I'm the panda.
Well, and that's what I love. Funny. Like, throughout that fight scene, I love how they portray that him being the dragon warrior is all about him being himself. Yeah, like, he doesn't become this masterful kung fu master. He just uses his body,
every aspect,
the way that it's designed to be used. And I love that.
How fortuitous that he is such a body type that the nerve attack can't be used against. Yeah, he's like just laughing. Like, it's like, your venomous attacks are hilarious to me. Like, oh, look at you thinking you're the grandmaster that knows, because he's all like, oh, Shifu. That's the Dustin Hoffman Shifu. He's like,
oh, Shifu.
He's like, he hasn't taught you everything, and then, like, he's all trying to do the nerve attack, and he's just like laughing. He's like, I'm gonna pee.
Well, I love this idea of the power that's unlocked when you realize or see your own worth,
personality, value.
His power is just him.
Right.
It's not except for the one part at the end where he does, like, is it like he uses his pinky
Shifu,
or something?
The Shifu finger hole.
And there's like, this huge, like, explode.
He's all like, he taught you and he's like, no, I figured it out. And he's all like, and he just turns Tai Lung into pure energy.
Yeah, that is good. But that's why I love that message of, it's just about loving yourself and accepting yourself. And through that, you become this powerful tool.
And Shifu also realizes that, like, I need to teach you differently than others, like, because you're not going to be that kind of warrior. I need to teach you through you, and I need to find the thing that's going to unlock your capability, which is the real manifestation of why Shifu is a great teacher, because he understands how to teach and to play towards, or that's his evolution, right? Is that he realizes that he's teachable, because Oogway is like, no, like, he is, he's all like, it's an accident. He's like, there's no accidents, man. Like, this is the universe manifesting itself to deal with this problem,
It's so interesting to me. Even Shifu couldn't fully understand until Poe saw his own worth and potential. Right. It was through that, because Shifu still couldn't see what the point of the scroll was. He couldn't understand the turtle's perspective.
Right.
But Shifu had an open heart and willingness. And I think that's what it takes to get there. Poe kind of naturally has that. And I think a lot of us, because of the different things we've gone through in life, the different traumas we've had or attachment injuries, I think that a lot of times we become like a Shifu, where we can do great things, but we struggle with that last piece because we struggle to see our own worth. And yes,
or exactly. The worth of others, because it's supposed to be this way, instead of being curious and open to whatever it could be, and that there's something to learn in that, you know.
And so we all need a Poe at some times, right? Someone who can help us to see that, oh, wait, it's not about this or that. It's just about seeing ourselves and believing in ourselves. And I think that's such a cool thing, because Shifu then, I feel like, can fully become this great mentor, like the turtle dude. What was his name? Oh, Oogway. Like,
which is just a cool name.
It is a cool name.
Just a great, everything about it's awesome.
Your next pet,
just the way that he like rejoins the universe.
Ooh, they could have done Oogway. So how cool would that have been if Grogu they named Oogway? Grogu's fine. But Oogway would have been cool. I always wondered, why did they choose Grogu? I want to know
to that. I do too.
I've not ever researched it, but I want to know. This completely different topic. I'm sorry, everyone.
It's okay, like, because it doesn't sound really cool. It sounds awkward.
It does.
So there's got to be some meaning to it, like Grogu. Like they've got to like.
I wonder if we'll find out eventually, like, why Grogu.
Well, I'm sure there's got to be some of the writers have got to.
But Oogway. Oh, I mean, I can only see him as Grogu now. I can't see him as Oogway, but that would have
been a great name. So one of the parts that, like, I die. Well, there's just so many. I laugh at everything. I think it's just
there's a lot of good comedy.
There's just it's just all along the way. Like the tempo and the delivery of humor,
and it's natural.
They interrupt things,
right? It just comes out.
Just like the the part where they like get to the top of the mountain and Dustin Hoffman character's like, we do not wash our pits in the pool of whatever,
in the pool of Serenity or whatever it was, the pond.
It's just like it's just everything. Well, but my favorite part, that's one of my favorite lines. And then when the scene is just awesome, where the five are facing off against Tai Lung and on the bridge, and just all the kung fu and how the five work as a team and complementing one another is so like creative and interesting and cool. And so everybody's like joining the fight, right? And then the dragonfly, or whatever he is he a dragonfly?
Praying mantis, maybe?
That's right, mantis. That's right. Duh. So he's mantis, and like he's like, go. And I don't remember who was the last one holding the bridge with him. He's like, go. And then he's like, what was I thinking? He's like,
because it's this tiny bug, right? This tiny bug.
It's just so, the delivery and the timing is so awesome. And every time he says, I kind of want to rewind it. It's just because it's like this build up, and like everybody's help is needed. And it's like, this mantis is going to hold this bridge so these 6 people can like fight on it. It's just so well done. It's just, all of it's cool. And the other scene I love Tai Lung as a villain. I mean, his voice acting, I don't know the actor's name. I can.
The actor is he's in a lot of different.
He's in the John Wick movies. He's great in the John Wick movies, and so like his voice acting with that whole persona is just so ferocious and diabolical.
His voice does it, right? Because he just has one of those voices where he gets real deep and kind of grasps. Like, it really works well the way
it does. And the whole escape scene is just such a freaking cool scene. Like, you know, the fortuitous nature of the feather and the impossibility of escape. You know what I mean? You know, we've got these hippos. Is that what they are? They're hippos, right?
I think rhinos.
Sorry, thank you. They're rhinos, you know, and they're huge. And then you've got the famous actor who's like the head.
The one that Michael,
black guy,
Green
from
what's his name? From the Green Mile.
Yeah. I always remember him from the Rocket movie with Bruce Willis and
the Aerosmith song movie. What's it called?
That's a song movie. Yeah,
Oh
what is that
shoot!
called?
I feel like I should know the name. I can't
I
think
should
of it.
absolutely know it. My wife, like, we watched that movie a ton. My
Yeah, it
brother.
has Ben Affleck and
Yeah, Ben Affleck and Bruce Willis and
oh, what's the girl's name?
Liv Tyler.
Liv Tyler.
Yeah, yeah,
I get yeah,
yeah,
I
yeah.
forgot
So
he's
he's
in
the
that. That's right.
he's the Rhino,
Shoot, I
guard,
can't
head
remember
guard.
his name, but he
Yeah, I can't
passed
remember.
away. Michael Duncan Scott, something like that. Shoot,
Yeah.
someone can correct us.
Um.
But yeah, he's
And,
the head guard, I think, of the
yeah.
rhinos,
So
right?
that whole scene, the whole escape scene, and the dynamic nature in which he escapes.
I love
And
so for me, I love his character because they have all these scenes where it seems like he's just flying through like I just always think when I watch his scenes like how much energy like would it take your brain to figure out I need to jump right now so that I can hit this
so
rock as it's
cool.
falling at the right time
Yeah,
to jump off
he's
of
like
that to hit
jumping
this
up
rock.
rocks. Yeah,
Yeah, it's
yeah.
so cool. I love how they do his whole escape thing, right? And even
Well,
when they
and
send those big arrow or what are those things?
crossbows.
Yeah,
They
like the
shoot the
big,
crossbows
huge
down.
spears
Well,
down at him.
oh, the spears too. Like, one of the other things about that scene too is the stop animation that happens as he's like ripping them apart with the axe or the hammer that he steals
Yeah.
off one of the guards. Like, even that, like, just that timing and that placement. The colors are great, and it comes out and there's like the fire burning from the explosion and he's out into the
So
snow. So
that
cool.
that character, I love him. So the guy who voices him
Mhm.
is the like stepdad in a movie called Hot Rod with Andy Samberg. Have you ever seen that
Oh.
movie? If you've not
Oh,
seen it,
yeah.
you need to
Yeah.
watch it. He's
Mike,
the
I had not
stepdad where
seen
they
it.
fight each other.
Yeah,
Oh,
I had not seen it.
he does
I
a
had not
great
seen it,
job.
and Eden came home from school and she's like, "You need to watch this movie. It's got the guy from Brooklyn Nine-Nine." And I was like, "Oh,
Yep.
let's do it." And
Did you
oh
watch
my
it?
good, oh, it's
Oh, it's so
hilarious.
funny, isn't it? It's one of my
So
favorites.
great.
It's kind of that offshoot where I feel like Talladega Nights is another one where it's kind of in that realm of in my mind where it's like this race. I don't know why like I always think of those together when I'm like I want to watch Talladega Nights and I'm like, oh yeah, I want to watch Hot Rod. But those two I kind of
I
put
just
in comedy and they're like I guess life risk
So I
sports
don't
or
know if
something.
I've even watched Talladega Nights the whole way through, but the
Oh,
scene where he prays to baby
dear
Jesus
little
over
baby
the
Jesus.
food,
Yes.
I've watched that scene maybe 100 times on YouTube. Like, I show it to everyone. My last trip when I was, did I tell you this? I should tell you. I'll tell you this on this podcast. It's hilarious. So I went down, as a
Or to Louisiana, that trip.
yeah, in my
Uh-huh.
job, I had to go down and do a site visit, and I went with
Mhm.
my previous boss and the previous boss of this
The
employee
person. Mhm.
that we were visiting, and it came up because it was during Mardi Gras, and there's like baby Jesus. There's like, I didn't know it was just babies. I'm like, what's the thing with the babies? And like the one the admin's like, oh, that's supposed to be like Jesus, like he's the king. And I was like, oh. I was like, okay. And then I said, oh, have you guys seen Talladega Nights? Like, have you watched this scene? And they're like, no. And I'm like, okay, we gotta watch it. So I put it up on the screen, you know what I mean? With the personality of our previous boss.
Yes.
And
He was probably horrified.
no, he was laughing.
Was he laughing?
Hysterically. Sharon
He is
was like,
from
I
he is from
forgot.
Florida.
Yeah, I forgot that there's some colorful language
Oh yeah.
at the end
Yeah.
of that scene, and so Sharon was like, "Oh, okay," but they were dying. Like, Roger was dying. He thought it was hilarious. He's
It
like,
is
"Okay, we
awesome.
maybe need to get the tone in a
I
different."
but
I love that scene.
I love the bad guy in Hot Rod.
Oh, okay.
I
Yeah,
feel like it's a classic.
yeah, that's great.
Like it's him because he's in a lot of I feel like more serious movies, but then I feel like you have this one and then you have Hot Rod. He might be in other comedies. But I was trying to think of where I've seen him somewhere where he's in a funny one. And then yeah, I'm sorry I brought up I'm all over the
No,
place
that's fine.
tonight with movies.
No, my brain's a little washy, like I said, but yeah. And it's really cool that they're able to work in humor into the pacing and the delivery,
Yeah.
because even like when Tai Lung gets the scroll and he's like,
Mhm.
and it's mine, and then he opens it up and he's all like, it's blank. It's like, all of the humor pacing, I just think just really complements the
Yeah.
movie and the messages of the movie.
Now let me ask you this. I've
Yeah.
not seen No. Sorry, I have seen 2 and 3, but I don't remember them. Are they?
Oh,
Do you feel like they're
dude,
as good
what?
as the
I
first one, or are
Yes,
they?
I do. I do think they're as good. They don't. They're not as masterful in their
Yeah,
goodness. I think Kung Fu Panda #1, like they just really hit it out of the park.
sure.
And I think they want to make more movies, but I still love the messages that they're bringing forth. Like the second one, is where he learns to receive the cannonball, and he's doing the kata that
Yeah.
he's processing his pain, right? Because he's processing
Mhm.
repressed memories. And it's so symbolic of like catching the fireball and then releasing it. You know what I mean? Like,
Okay.
so it's like this
Yeah.
idea of confronting your trauma and moving through it and breathing through it and
Yeah.
living through it and then releasing it. You know what I mean? In a way that
Mhm.
that the villain in that, the peacock villain, is fantastic in #2. That's the one with the peacock villain, and they have all the minions are like tigers or whatever. And so yeah, it's fantastic. So I think it does a great job. And then the third one is where he connects back with his family clan, and it's the
Yeah, I
idea
don't
of
remember the third one.
it's
I don't remember the second or third. I know I've seen them both. I just don't remember them at all.
yeah, it's like where he's connecting with his chi. Like the third one is all about your energy and
And
connecting
they're
with
all
your
still
energy.
Jack Black,
Yeah.
because I know I've seen the show
The
also.
TV
There's a
shows. I haven't
TV
watched
show,
any
and
of
I
the
don't think
shows.
that was Jack Black.
No, probably not. No. But no, the movies
Maybe it
are all
was. I
Jack
can't
Black.
remember. Okay.
No, the movies are all Jack Black for sure. So no,
So
I love the second one. That second one, actually, every time that scene, even now, just talking about it, it just brings me to tears instantaneously, because I think it's so profoundly um, articulates what we need to do to move through, oftentimes what we
yeah.
need to do to move through our trauma, that we need to embrace it. And this notion of being in this emotional place, and that he was hampered in his ability to deal with the peacock, because the peacock knew his trigger and would
Mhm.
use his trigger to interrupt him, right? Like he would
Mm.
flash the eye symbol whenever he saw the eye symbol or whatever it was. He would get triggered and he would lose focus in his combat or whatever. And so the peacock just like ruled over him. But then he gets ahead, and of course there's just so much wonderful humor again in it. There's this scene where he, like in #2, where he's like having a back and forth
Uh-huh.
with but he can't hear him. Like he starts too soon, and the peacock's like, what, like, what are you saying? He's like giving his monologue or whatever. He can't, and the peacock's like, what, can anyone hear this guy? And they're all like, it's so funny, it's so great. And so he gets out, and he's like, they're blowing through these bridges or whatever, and he's like out in this pond, like standing on this little island or piece of, I can't remember what it was, and so he starts firing cannons at him, but he's able to just receive the cannons. It's like, your blows, your triggers, like, I've mastered this, like, you can't have power over me, which is really what triggers do.
Yeah.
Triggers have power over you. You're not
Mhm.
able to be yourself. You're not able to live peacefully or purposefully or deliberately. And so he overcomes that. And then the peacock just kind of, it's like suicide by gun kind of scenario.
Yeah. Well, and the interesting thing about triggers is they trigger when you think about a trigger, right? And it doesn't seem like it's that big of a thing. It seems like it's something you can take care of or you can deal with. But oftentimes trigger realism, right? It becomes real. It becomes what the actual thing was, and it's so real that you're just absorbed into it, and that's why we
Or you're
have
just
those
taken back.
reactions.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you're
taken
just
back to
taken
the
back to
trauma.
that time. Yeah, and so
Yeah.
you
Or
emotionally
or that
regress,
time is
or
brought to the present, and it feels like what's going on right now is just as life-threatening as maybe what someone said in the past, or what happened in the past, depending on what type of trauma it was.
yeah. Yeah, so that notion of embracing it, um and that idea of expunging it or cathartically releasing it or whatever,
Mhm.
is
Well,
just
it's
profoundly
interesting, right? Because
manifested.
you look at certain diagnoses that really benefit from exposure models of therapy,
Yeah.
where you kind of address it head on and
Yeah, it's one
process
of my
it
favorite
and expose
it's one of my
yourself.
favorite models to use.
Yeah.
It's actually it's called TFCBT is the one I like to use the most when I'm working with somebody through a really dramatic specific trauma event. But I
Mhm.
really don't think of it as CBT. I think of it as a narrative, right? Because you're embracing the story and you're rewriting the
Yeah.
story.
The trauma focused CBT for me, it's different than CBT. There's also um, uh, CPT, right, which is another trauma based, or cognitive processing therapy, which is a trauma based therapy, which I feel like is more narrative based. I like that one too. Um, that's probably my preferred. Although I don't know that people care about this, but
Sure,
we talk
that's
about models all
exactly
day.
what they want to hear
Yeah.
about in Kung Fu Panda Land.
Exactly. But I
Um,
enjoyed it. It was a fun one. I love when they mix comedy, right? And that's what was so fun about our last one, Fifth Element, is that you have the sci-fi and then you have the comedy mixed in. So I like that we have here
the
the
part
kung fu martial
where
art
where it's true, like
comedy.
he has subdued himself to his father's. You could go sell noodles, and you take the noodle truck. And he's like, "Oh, I was gonna tell you I want to," and then he's like, "Oh, the bean buns." But then he's like like I love how they portray like it's been all afternoon him trying to get up the stairs,
Yeah.
and he's gotten up like 4 steps. He's like, ah, ah.
I
It's
love
so
towards the
great.
end when he comes back kind of defeated, right? And his dad, I think you're talking about this, his dad gives him a
Hugs
hug,
him, and
and
then
then
like
he
puts the
backs up, and then he has the robe on, or he has the apron on.
yeah, like the hug and the apron, like you're back to where you belong in the store.
Yeah, there's
Uh,
so many good comedic parts. But yes, it was
yeah.
a good one to talk about. I enjoyed it. Any other things that come to mind that you wanted to bring up?
I know I'm gonna miss. This is the one of the few times where I didn't take notes. I usually do a better job of thinking through the points I want to make because I'll take some notes, and I didn't
Uh-huh.
do that this time watching the movie. And I think I'm gonna have to return to that process because I'm realizing that there's like 20 points that I wanted to make through the story. I know. I mean, the big points for me was just that idea of the discovery that it is self acceptance,
Yeah.
and that when you do what you do, when you are who you are and doing what you do, that's when you're going to have greatness, and you're
Yeah,
not going
such
to ever
great
have greatness.
power, right? It's
You're
it's
never going to have greatness trying to do what somebody else does.
yeah.
You've got to find your thing and
And that's
hammer down on that thing and make it better
and
versus
that's what
trying to
I
do what other people
love,
do.
is this idea that everyone can be the dragon warrior.
Hmm.
It's just about seeing yourself and believing in
Right.
yourself as you are,
Right.
and really magnifying that love, that self-compassion.
Yeah.
And I love that rhetoric. I love that storyline.
And
It
I
just allows us to progress forward so much easier than
Right,
we when we
and
don't.
I love that a part of that story is these people. Like, you need these friendships. Like, the 5 needed each other, and Poe needs them, and that and that Dustin Hoffman's character needed Poe so
Mhm.
that he could get to a place of peace, right? That he couldn't get to a place of peace without Poe. That Poe and that relationship allowed him to move past the regret that he had and how Tai Lung had turned out.
So then
Um,
greatness is unlocked with believing
Relationships.
in yourself and accepting yourself, while also connecting with others.
Yeah,
I think they're both needed, right? You need to believe in yourself
absolutely.
and you need the connections,
Well, and I love
and
that
then
the
it
master
unlocks
has
that.
a master, right? I love
Yeah.
that Uguay, is like the grandfather master or the grand master. I love
But
that there
the
is.
way Uguay leads is such a beautiful thing,
Oh, it's
because
great.
it's not a taskmaster,
Not one
right?
bit.
They're friends. They're
Right.
together, like they lift together. And
Right.
and Uguay's really there to be with him. And he doesn't always he's not telling him what to do. He's
Yeah.
like it's a growth process together. And I feel like that's what then Dustin Hoffman's character and Poe become, where they learn and grow together. And I think that that's
Hmm.
such a cool thing when we think of leadership, or like in the kung fu era, if they or realm, if they use the term master. it really doesn't denote what we think of when we think of maybe a leader. I think a lot of times we think
Well, I
task.
think it's emblematic of what a great leader is, right? I mean,
Yeah.
Uguay really is. I love that part where where Dustin Hoffman's character goes to Uguay and he's meditating like upside down on his stick thing. And he gets down and he's like gonna talk to him, but he starts blowing out the candles and like looks at him as he's like blowing out
One at a time. There's like 100 or 200 of them.
He has like billions of them. And he just like puts them out with one of his like blows of wind. One of the other parts that I think is so hilarious too is like when Jack Black gets delivered to the monastery or whatever, and he's like going through all the weapons. He's like, I've seen paintings of that painting, or like or the sword that's like so sharp you can cut yourself just by looking at it. Like,
and he goes, ow, or whatever. He gets like,
well, then it's like the vase of like the 10,000 warriors or whatever that he like breaks,
and he breaks.
Then, like, he moves it. It's all like, oh, every time he like brushes. It's so fantastic. And just how, austere. Why did I forget? I forgot the intermediate masters, Dustin Hoffman's character's name again. Gosh, that's how.
Yeah, I can't remember his name either.
And just like that, all of that whole interplay. So yeah, I mean, I loved that humor, and I loved the relationships of the masters. I think that's one of the reasons why this movie, just because I just love that mentor thing. I love the idea of being a mentor, of having a mentor. That sense that somebody's there guiding you, that they're challenging you, that they're there for you, but they're also letting you figure it out, instead of task masking, like you were pointing out. They're letting you go through the journey of discovery.
Well, I think when we do that, when we lead in a way that provides, I feel like, full growth from someone else, it's about us growing also. And I think sometimes when we fill a leadership role, or we feel like we're in a leadership capacity, I think sometimes we naturally gravitate towards it's about others learning, and maybe I don't need to learn anything. But I think good leaders, for me, they've always been the ones that I feel like they're learning with me. Like it's us together learning.
Right.
And maybe they have knowledge that I don't, but
Sure.
then they acknowledge that I have knowledge that they don't. And I feel like it's so much, like I feel like so much more comes of that. And I feel like that was a good example in this movie where leadership is really about, like you said earlier, connection, right? Connecting with each other and growth coming from that, instead of just, you need to do this. And that's kind of how the Dustin Hoffman character started with his leadership, right? Where it was like, you need to do this, this, and this. And then I think it really became them growing together as he took on more of that example of the turtle, but also I think of seeing Poe and how Poe has things to contribute.
Accepting that Poe did, right?
Yeah.
In a way that he could have never imagined, right? Because he naturally is resistant to the nerve attack.
And what an important relationship dichotomy to remember in a therapeutic process also, right?
Absolutely.
As the therapist, to see that, hey,
what can I learn from this person?
We're growing together. Yeah. And I'm learning just as much as they are, and not feeling that,
or that they have something to teach you,
all the answers. Exactly.
I mean? Yeah, because every person that's made it through a midpoint in life has learned how to do things.
Oh yeah.
If you'll definitely listen, they'll tell you some incredible.
Well, any person at any point in their life is learning and has a different perspective that I can learn from.
Absolutely.
And I think that's something that, is really, when we are open to that, I think, it really allows us to grow and connect, but it also allows us to maybe feel more acceptable, more lovable.
I think one of the things that's really interesting too is how Poe talks about how he eats when he's
I do remember
stressed or nervous or whatever. And then at the end of the montage of training,
he's not hungry.
Yeah, he's like, he wins, and so Dustin Hoffman like defers, like, you can have it, and then he's all like, I'm good, like, I don't need it.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? It's just it's a really cool thing that he has figured it out. Like he's gotten to a place of peace, right? Like he's accepted.
I think because at that point, Dustin Hoffman had helped him to somewhat see that he is enough. Instead of
Right.
Dustin Hoffman not believing in him, Dustin
Right.
Hoffman was believing in him.
Acknowledging.
And
Yeah.
it's that connection piece, like you're talking about, that I feel like at that point gave him it filled what he needed filled. It wasn't the fake. And that's where we see like compulsive behaviors come from, right? Because it's like a pseudo hormone that's filling those gaps,
It
but it's
is. Yeah.
temporary.
Right.
And at the end, when he had that connection and felt that love from, well, not the end, but the end of that montage, when he felt the love from Dustin Hoffman, that's what I kind of envisioned was,
Did
he
you
doesn't need the food anymore.
did you catch, which I didn't know before, actually before this viewing, that there's an after credit scene?
Oh, I don't know if I watch it. Well, what is the after credit scene?
The after credit scene is Poe and Dustin Hoffman's character sitting under a tree eating. And then
Oh yeah, I did see
under
that.
the peach tree, and then I think the peach seed that he planted, that Dustin
Oogway.
Hoffman no, Oogway doesn't. Oh, Oogway does plant it. You're right. Yeah, Oogway
Well,
plants it.
Dustin Hoffman makes like a comment about it, and then
Yeah, and then he like makes a
Oogway
thing in the
covers
ground.
it. Yeah.
Yeah, he does. And so that is like started to sprout, and so it's kind of
Yeah.
like the passing on of the wisdom
That's cool.
has like taken root and has been given, from master to student. So yeah, it was just a really nice button up. But so yeah, every scene in this movie is enjoyable to me and has a wisdom to it. And so I want to watch it again. I might watch it again tonight.
Go for it. Everyone should watch it.
They should. It's a great
show.
Fun
One.
All right.
Thanks, everyone. It was fun.
Thanks for spending some time with us today.
Adios, my friends. Yeah.